You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Alright, you'll have to excuse me for the sketchy start here because basically nothing was ready for tonight's stream, but I am here in the chair. My name is Nathan Foy and I'm joined by a team which we'll introduce in a moment. Once we get our threads in order, we'll be able to show you the right satellite imagery. I know we've not got any intro music or anything right now, but of course this is actually the first potentially serious situation of the year in the National Hurricane Center led basins. We're obviously looking at the Eastern Pacific. Obviously that's not what we're looking at right now on our image, but we will get there in a moment once we get the correct imagery up on the screen. And then we'll be able to take a look at what we've got with Invest 91E. Now, if you're not familiar with the situation, it's a system that's started to develop in the Eastern Pacific, not far from the coast of Mexico. Eastern Mexico, that would be, near Oaxaca. Here is a little image of it right now. So there, as you can see towards the top there, that's the area that we are looking at right now for potential development, where all of that swirling's going on. Whether we've actually got a full circulation in place here or not yet, well, that's a matter for the National Hurricane Center to decide, and the next update window will be coming up at the end of this hour, which is why we've decided to stream at this point. What I have managed to create at the start of this event is that bottom bar, which tells you all of the chances for tropical storm force winds in various locations, and the rainfall forecasts, which in some places are quite eye-boggling numbers. In some areas we're expecting possibly 500 millimeters of rain, mainly the areas near the landfall area of this potential tropical storm. Now then, it is likely to become a tropical storm, and that means it would get named, but at the moment it is still just an invest. And as I switch rooms right now so I can greet my team properly, I'm just going to make sure that we get everything in order before we begin here. Let's see if we can listen to them right now. Hello everyone, have we got you?
Hello?
Yep.
I hope.
So we have Christian Alfieri, is that you?
Yes.
We've also got
No.
Lucas Gonzalez and Orlando Figueroa making an appearance with us tonight, and I think Marlene is on her way as well. One other thing that I will be able to show you in just a moment is some webcam views right now, or just one webcam view actually, that's working at the moment along the coast. But as I go and try and get that onto the screen and get everything else sorted out, why don't Christian, why don't you start off with what you've been monitoring and what you think of this system so far?
Well, first off, I just want to say a certain Ethan has joined us.
Okay.
But yeah, what I've
Hello.
been monitoring. Hello. What I've been monitoring of this system so far. Obviously, I was the one who broke the news on the bulletin of like, oh, 91E has formed, has been named, and all that. Back then, it wasn't looking as potent as it is now, basically. But obviously, yeah, obviously now as time has gone on, and the NHC have continually upped their chances. I believe it's what, like something like 90 in 5 days. I'm not sure what it
90
is.
for both.
In 48
90 for
hours,
both.
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And
Yeah,
in
'cause
5 days.
I mean,
Yeah,
come
so
on,
90
it's got full
2
model
and 5
support.
days.
I mean, I think it's pretty much a given that it's going to form. I mean, I know that last year there were 1 or 2 90% duds that happened in the Eastern Pacific, but this one must surely be the real deal. Whilst I've got it, let's see if we can take a look at the latest webcam right now. There is a webcam with something behind it that's now gone, and that is a view right now in Huatulco, which is, if I remember rightly, just to the east of Predo Escondido, I think, west of Salina Cruz. So that's a view there right now, at least somewhere along the coast in that vicinity. That's the best you're going to get for this storm because I've not been able to trace any other webcams in the area. So that's what we have right now. Now let's talk to Alfiria. You were next up. Tell us what you're seeing with this system.
Alright, give me just a moment. I'm getting Epic Pen booted up, and hopefully Opera won't be a jerk to me, and let me do my whole demonstration real quick about how this looks like on satellite, because it's, looking at it from a satellite appearance, it is pretty obvious why this isn't named yet.
Okay. I can show screen shares really well, so we can get that going if you want.
All right, so let's talk about this. This is
so it should be a TD by now.
Here's, and I'll talk about why this probably isn't named yet. So this is 91E. For most of its life that we've been really kind of looking at, there's been no main circulation associated with this. You can kind of see in the early parts of the frames where like you can't tell a very well-defined center. And only in the more recent frames has it really tried, and by recent frames I mean just past couple of minutes, a possible center trying to form here. But the lack of an overall center is what's really been preventing this from being named, and that's something that a lot of people have kind of been, you know, not paying attention to whenever they keep saying that, hey, this should be named already, or a TD. We are waiting for one of the main things that you need to really look at is that you need a well-defined circulation with every tropical cyclone. And also they have to be out in the ocean. So with this, it's in the ocean, for one. It has full tropical characteristics. Problem is that, except for these past few frames, it's been very hard to tell a clear-cut circulation, because it looks like it's trying to have, like, fiber, and that's a bit hyperbolic, but you're seeing there's trying to be multiple little circulations that have been trying to pop up.
Yes.
And just recently, we have gotten an area of possible circulation in the most recent frame, which could be right there, but then again, with how erratic this storm has been, it's very hard to tell, and that's kind of the whole gist as to why this isn't named yet.
I think it's been most notable on visible imagery that we were showing just before, where it looked to me towards the right-hand side, not where people think this potential circulation might be. There might be a little other area towards the east. And I guess this is what's been throwing models a lot, because GFS in particular wanted landfall much further east than where the storm is right now, and is still getting it to track back a little bit. But other models had been much more of a traditional motion towards sort of the west-northwest, and that would obviously be more of a threat to places like Acapulco. So what do we think about the storm's motion once it gets going?
I mean, there's really two cases to kind of go off of. There's the best case scenario, which is that it keeps its west-northwest track and avoids land, and then the worst case scenario is that it does that eastern track and heads into Alpacoca, and that's something we don't... Please forgive me on my pronunciations, they are terrible.
Sorry.
But right now, it looks like that still, you can't really see a clear visible circulation. It's definitely a tropical wave, and that's something that I will give credit where credit is due. There is a low pressure here. Models have shown that there is a low pressure here somewhere, but the direct center of that low pressure system, it's still trying to figure out where it's located, what it wants to do, and whether or not it wants to move where models want it to move. And so this is one of those situations to where I think it's kind of a 50-50 chance. If it all depends on where this center really starts to show up.
Ethan, resident Eastern Pacific tracker, what do you make of it right now?
I disagree, Alfiria. I actually think this is a tropical depression right now, actually. Because if we pull up this microwave pass, I hope it pulled up on my screen. No, it didn't, unfortunately. No. Right, let's just give you a minute or two just to get this up here.
Yeah, get it up in your tabs there, but you can still, in the meantime, that true color imagery. It's a rather broad thing, isn't it?
It is, but but there is something that I want to talk about, and that is this thing is going to be moving incredibly, and I mean incredibly slowly. Like this thing is going to be borderline stalling throughout its whole life as it moves gradually westward and then turns into the coast of Mexico. And that's going to, well, this thing might not get very strong, like major hurricane strength or higher. There is still a chance that it could get to Cat 3, but certainly not higher. But the main threat is going to be very heavy rainfall, and this area of Mexico is very mountainous, and that's going to lead to a lot of issues. But let's see if I can get this microwave pass up here now. I hope it'll Oh, it's doing that. Okay.
Please keep in mind that I have been
There it is.
editing almost all day, so.
So there's
Yeah, there's
that
a-
Oh, right,
microwave
there we
pass.
go.
And you can see
There's-
right there, there's a solid core there. Being,
Yeah, I mean, it's just now recently started to show up on recent frames on Visible, so that's something also I said. That's kind of what prevented them from kind of naming it beforehand, is that we just
Naming
now
it?
recently got,
naming it.
or giving it TD status.
Okay. I was about to say this isn't a tropical storm right now, but
Yeah, because I know that wind speed wise it's not, but
I would very strongly argue right now that this is a 30-mile-per-hour tropical depression. I know that the latest ATCF fix had it with winds of 30 miles per hour. I'd probably agree with that around there, but in general, that's what we're seeing over the next few days for this system. I can pull up the GFS if you'd like, Nathan, for rainfall.
I already have the GFS.
Blimey, it's a contest going on. Well, Ethan's got it there on his screen.
I'm just going to go over to the Euro here. Let's see.
The
Total
GFS
accumulated
is still
precipitation
predicting
rate.
a peak pressure in like the 950s.
Hmm.
yeah,
It-
but it's,
it's an
also the
outlier.
GFS.
But you'll want to focus on here. This table over here is in inches, and you'll notice that a lot of these yellow areas are going to start to peak up here. And at this point, this storm hasn't even made landfall, and we've already got, what is that, over 12 inches of rainfall?
At
right
sea.
there, I think?
That's
Yeah,
near
and then-
24.
Blimey, look at that. And-
You get
and-
significant areas of yellow there, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
constituting, because we can barely see it on our screen, that constitutes probably around 14 inches, 350 millimeters to get to the yellows there.
Yeah, it's quite a lot of rainfall, and that's just within 5 days. And if we go out farther, this is within the next 7 days. You get isolated 6 inches here in portions of eastern Mexico, and I know that while this tropical cyclone is going to make landfall in Mexico, its impacts are going to spread far beyond that. And I'm very concerned or very worried about the impacts that areas east of here, so areas like this country, like Belize, I forget this country over
Really?
here, what it's called.
Guatemala.
Thank you, but these kind of areas could receive impacts from the potential outer band to this system as well,
Certainly.
and that could lead to more heavy rainfall in those areas. So it's going to be very important that while you might not be next to the storm, you could still receive impacts far away from this due to the outer bands and just the sheer size of this. I mean, just looking at the satellite imagery, you can just see just how large it is right now. I mean, I'll go back down to the true color zoomed out imagery here, and look at how large its influence is. It goes into portions of the Gulf of Mexico even right now.
And the Bay of Campeche.
Which is in the Gulf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but still.
Just trying to line up my images here. Yeah, there you can see that latest visible imagery. And just incidentally, if you're wondering what our little code is underneath me, I just thought I'd stick it up on here because it's like basically a fast track to all of our contact areas and socials and all of that. So if anyone does have any questions for us on the air tonight, though, send a message in our YouTube chat live. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. It will light up for us. For any questions, I imagine we're going to get one or two about what are this storm's implications for the Atlantic. But I've not had that written yet, but I'm sure there will be some of that. I don't know if anyone wants to speculate.
I can. Here's the thing that's really going to depend how this works in the Atlantic. I forgot which year it was. I think it was it was either 2020 or 2021 where we had a East Pac crossover in roughly the same kind of way. But
Not really. This is going to be completely different than what you're thinking with Amanda and Cristobal, Alferia.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
What happened
So
with
That
those
was
systems?
2020.
Yeah, what happened with those systems is Amanda actually kept its circulation entirely as it moved over the Central America and Eastern Mexico and reformed, got its act together and ended up reforming.
Are you saying that this won't?
No, it
That's-
probably won't because of the fact that it's moving a lot more slower than what Amanda was. Amanda was quick forming, and within 2 days of its forming, it was already inland. And this is going to take its time coming inland, and still, even as it moves inland into Mexico, it's still going to move very slowly. But some energy of this system, not the system directly, but some
that's
energy
what I
of
was
it,
getting at. I was
could reform in the Atlantic. Yeah.
basically what could happen. This is kind of unlikely because we're so far out, and we'll get more information as time passes on. Is that this will move through, and the mountainous terrain's going to tear the system basically apart. But the remnants of this, as in the storms and everything like that, could try and develop something in the Gulf if the conditions are right. The question is, will it be at a point to where it can do that adequately without it getting more interference from either land or from wind shear or from dry air? And so that's gonna really what's gonna keep this thing from, and like I said, going past 3 days on GFS and all that is unreliable, really. And then once you're past 5 days, at that point you just throw your hands up in the air and say we can get some trends out of this, but we can't say anything for certain. And that's kind of what we're seeing here, is that we know this is probably going to make impact in Mexico, and the way that this is trending, it'll make its way, or whatever's left of the system will make its way out into the Gulf. What it does from there, we don't know.
There is some general certainty, Alfuria, that some sort of low pressure area will form. If it's in the Caribbean Sea or the Gulf of Mexico, we don't know. But some energy or some low pressure system is going to form from the remnants of the system in the Atlantic. Would that be extropical? Would that be subtropical? Would that be tropical? We just don't know. But there's uncertainty with location. For example, the Euro forces in the Bay of Campeche, while the GFS forms this in the Western Caribbean Sea. So there is a lot of uncertainty with the system in the Atlantic, but right now it's by far better just to focus on the Eastern Pacific part of this aspect, because that is, I argue, is much more dangerous than its Atlantic potential counterpart.
Yeah.
J.O. wants to know what satellite imagery websites we're looking at. What's on my screen is COD Imagery. Great website. Ethan, you were looking at what?
I was looking at Levi Cowan's website. That's tropicaltidbits.com.
And Alferia too.
I just realized, Nathan, that that microwave pass that I was showing was actually showing a curved band structure, and according to a well-known forecaster in our public server, it's actually pretty difficult to get a curved band structure without a well-defined center. So this is pretty certainly, based on that microwave pass, a tropical depression right now.
Fascinating. We will find out at the end of the hour whether the National Hurricane Center are going to agree with that.
I think they'll pull it, honestly.
You think
Yeah,
they'll
and
do
it,
it?
I think it's in their best interest, also because of potential impacts that might come from the system. They pretty surely need to get tropical storm or hurricane washes out for this.
In fact, it maybe slightly surprised me that it didn't already make it a PTC.
Yeah.
Just a little.
I do kind of want to point out, is there anything really, besides the slow movement, because we know that upwelling may be an issue for this going onward, especially since I haven't been keeping an eye on this like a hawk, because I've been busy video editing for the entire week, but is there anything that is going to stop this storm besides upwelling? Because I'm looking at this from water vapor imagery, it seems like dry air isn't going to be that big of an issue, unless it's somehow...
Honestly, Alferia, looking at it, wind shear isn't really going to be that big of a threat. Wind shear is actually forecast to be below 10 knots throughout its entire life in the Eastern Pacific, believe it or not. So really, probably the only issue is probably going to be upwelling with this, yeah. I could also see a few issues, maybe with some land interaction, and maybe the system's organization as well. But relative humidity is perfectly fine. Sea surface temperatures are not an issue. So pretty reasonable, I'd say, right now to forecast. I mean, all models bring this above hurricane intensity. So the HMON, HWRF, and GFS in particular all bring this up to a major hurricane or borderline major hurricane at that. So I'd probably forecast a low end Cat 2 from this right now.
Wow.
I think the main issue that comes with this is that land interaction. Might be the only saving grace, especially in those last critical 24 hours before landfall. Those high mountains and Oaxaca will just end up shredding it and making, although it's going to end up dumping a lot of rain, it's going to really interfere with the circulation and the structure.
And that, I believe, is the voice of Orlando. Nice to hear from you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute. I guess I joined at the right time.
Certainly. I don't know if Marlene, you'd like to say anything at this point as well? Because I want to give everyone an opportunity to speak, of course, on our stream. Just chip in when necessary. Let's see what else we've got right now. Soham on our team says, you may have noticed a large outflow extending onto the Gulf of Mexico from 91E.
I honestly think we can all see it on satellite.
Yep, there it is once again. And one or two questions about joining the team, actually, which is interesting. And the best way to do that is to send us a message. I know that there's been one or two requests recently that I haven't got around to. Sometimes, especially when it's me personally on my Discord account, you've got to keep badgering. Because sometimes, I mean, I'm not very good at it. I get loads of messages a day, and sometimes I'll read it and then I'll forget to reply. So there we go. But
Now I know that some people are already going to be asking this, but whenever this storm becomes named, it will actually be Agatha, which, to be honest, it shouldn't even be named Agatha if you ask a lot of people in the meteorological community, because the last time Agatha was used was back in 2016, right? But Agatha in 2016 wasn't particularly that bad, but I believe it's...
I can't remember what it did, but you're going to go on about the 2010 one.
Let me go see.
The 2010 one should have been retired, though.
I was just helping you along there. Yeah.
Yeah, the 2016 one was out to sea, but that'll be our first name storm almost. I mean, it's pretty certain that it's going to happen at this point, but just some notable history about the storm right now. We can't really say much.
Basically, will it be third time unlucky?
2016's Agatha was just out to sea as a TS, but what was 2010's Agatha's intensity?
Tropical storm.
Yeah, it was weak, but obviously it's weak doesn't always mean
yeah, but
quiet.
Agatha in 2010 killed over 200 people and caused over $1 billion of damages in Mexico.
Yeah, that should have definitely been retired.
On record, yeah.
I'm honestly surprised that that name still exists, even though 2010 still hasn't got retired yet.
So we're back looking at that satellite imagery once again. I'm just trying to get that camera back up and running, and I don't want it to play all of that noise, whatever it was playing. It's probably playing an ad or something, because they always do. So I don't know what was... It's always a hassle trying to get these things up and running, but I just want to bring that back to you whenever we can. This is Force 13 Live. We, of course, are tracking this storm right now. It's going to be an hour-long update today. This is our first live update on anything in the two basins that most of us follow us on in the Atlantic and Eastern Pacific this year. I'm sure there'll be many more. And of course, we have our tropical weather bulletin as always tonight at midnight UTC, which in Central Time, which I think is what they use over there in Mexico, that would be...
Yes.
Yep, that would be at 7 p.m. Daylight Time. Right then, let's see what else we've got. Why is the GFS wanting a 140-knot system, and do you agree with it? That's the question we've just received.
It's broken.
It's broken.
Yeah,
Definitely broken.
So how did it break then?
I have no idea.
I think it
Um,
just broke for an
I'm just
unknown
pulling up
cause.
some other models here right now. The Canadian model forecasts a pressure, I think, in the 986 there, I think. The Euro in particular is also around that, or at 989. So that's a 65 to 70 mile per hour tropical storm right there. The Icon model, this is I think that's one of the German model runs.
Yeah.
That also is in the mid 980s as well. But then you get towards the big ones. HMON in particular is forecasting a pressure in the 950s from this. What winds are these getting? Yeah, winds of 120 miles per hour from the HMON model. But you also have to bear in mind that it also keeps it much farther offshore than some of the other models do. I know that the some models bring it onshore in about the next 3 days, just past the 3-day mark. The H1 in particular brings it on closer towards that day 4 point, thus a stronger storm. And then you got the almighty HWRF, which is actually weaker than the H1, only
All right.
forecasting a minimal Cat 3.
Well, that does happen, yeah. That certainly
So, with those conditions, I mean, there is certainly conditions to support a major hurricane out of this. Don't get me wrong. I just wouldn't forecast one yet due to other implications that might happen. Plus, I want to wait and see what the National Hurricane Center forecasts as well.
I can't think of many doing like a major hurricane landfall in early season. you see this set up more in late season, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, I can't really recall the last time that
No.
we've had really slow-moving, rapidly intensifying hurricane this early on in the season, if you want to say it. I mean, let's say it at this point. Going into the coast of Mexico this early on in the season, I can't recall it, to be honest.
It all comes down to the gyre that was associated with and the lower portion of the Caribbean. With that, it just ended up crossing over rather than staying in the mountains. Most of the convection and energy associated ended up transferring over to the Eastern Pacific. So that's pretty much why it seems so broad. But with that, it also gives it a lot of potential if it ends up forming an actually organized center to actually really pop off.
All right. Cool Creeper Ryan is shouting at one of you. I don't know who was on about it having multiple vortexes when there aren't, apparently.
You were.
Well, I don't know. It's hard to tell when you look at the visible in particular. I don't know about multiple vortexes, but there's potentially multiple rotations. Or a rotation that hasn't managed to consolidate itself properly yet, as far as I can see. And of course, ASCAP missed earlier, didn't it?
Yeah.
Which is disappointing, to say the least. Let's see what else we have. What towns and cities are most likely to receive the direct impacts of 91E, and how much rainfall should they receive? Well, we see it ticking along at the bottom of our screen every so often. We're still expecting it to be the areas around Salina Cruz, although maybe a little bit further west. But from what we're seeing with all of those banding structures around what will be the storm center, we could be looking at very high amounts of rain all the way into El Salvador. GFS last run suggesting that 200 millimeters easily still extending into El Salvador, and to the western extent, much west of Salina Cruz. I'm not sure the localities in that area, but a large area of, I think it was nearly 10 million. Or is it nearly... No, it was nearly 20 million that are inside a 10% chance of 200 millimeters of rain.
Yeah, and just to point out, that could quite easily shift onshore with this system, given its uncertainty with its stalling.
Well, all of that
I
is
mean-
onshore. Yeah.
Oh, it is?
Well, according to GFS, but we know that it can overestimate.
Yeah, the GFS's problem is it ends up over intensifying, pretty much showing too much energy that isn't actually present. As
But
well
I don't
as
know with rainfall because quite often rainfall models underestimate, so maybe it's offset with the GFS right now, but we'll see.
yeah, I mean
I'll
GFS
see.
also likes to have more convection, so we'll see.
Okay, we're
When
waiting
is the when
for,
is the next advisory from the Hurricane Center?
Top of the hour, 30 minutes.
well, if there's an advisory.
Yeah.
We're waiting to hear from the National Hurricane Center. If they issue an advisory, it will be within the next 30 minutes. Sometimes they can be early. Some of the astute people within our team will know exactly where to find the update as soon as it drops. I'll be watching it as well. But we'll
know
see
that-
where it is.
I can already
And
get.
I
I've already
honestly,
told
I honestly wonder if Recon is in the storm right now, or
No.
They're planning.
I
I
know
heard
that,
they were planning for tomorrow. Is that true?
No idea, but I know that that some people are gonna ask, or gonna say that that we won't be having one at top of the hour because the NHC hasn't issued their giant red bar on their website. That is
Ah.
actually not mandatory to initiate an advisory. They did that for a lot of the storms back in 2020, but it's actually not required that they do that before they issue the advisory.
They
Someone
do
just
that as
answered
much
your
as they can
question.
now.
Yes, they do. But someone in the public server just answered your question on Recon. Recon is actually coming on the 29th. So that will be Sunday, right? I think.
Crikey.
Yeah, Friday. Remember
Well,
checking right?
they might have to start sooner if it starts intensifying. But if the models are right, then I would agree that Sunday would be the time. But I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, it depends because if this was in the Atlantic, they'd be flying in there now to find a center. So it's all about priorities and all of that, isn't it? There must be a reason why they're waiting that long. Seems to be quite a long time.
Give the specific more Recon.
And Soham says that it's not just on Sunday, but it's at 17:30 Z, which is, that's in the afternoon of Sunday. It's not an early one.
Early afternoon Sunday.
Longer by the time it gets there.
Not
So
bad.
we'll keep you updated, and as soon as there's news, if there is any, then all of these people in our chat will be running around like headless chickens, because we'll have our first tropical cyclone.
Sure I will.
But at the moment, it's not the case right now.
At least something that the Eastern Pacific has beaten the Atlantic at least.
But for how long?
Yeah. Thank you, Beat.
But for how long?
Probably not very long, considering that, well, if the model's verified, then 1L will be coming up in about 6 or 7 days, but that's subject to interpretation, of course.
But, I don't know where we're going here. I was expecting a very active early season. I was thinking that we may well be onto our C-named storm by the time we get to June the 1st. And we're not even at A yet, so for as long as that's the case, I guess the predictions are going to go down slightly. And of course our next prediction on May 31st, that will be out live on our countdown video.
Countdown to Atlantic hurricane season.
Our big feature that it's basically like New Year's Eve for hurricanes, but we'll be there doing that right here
Happy
on
New Year.
our live stream. As for right now, let's see if there's some more comments. Apparently it's logistically challenging for Recon in the East Pac travelling really far on geopolitical issues. Yes. I don't know if there's any issues with Mexico, but I know that they have issues, or they at least had issues with flying over Cuba. I don't know if that's still the case. Power Tracking sends a message of support there, and thank you very much for that. And all the support we do receive goes towards really cool things on our streams and all of that. And coming soon, a brand new automated stream, which is for once 100% automated. We've teamed up with some developers, and we're hoping to bring that forward by August, and we'll have a really cool, well, I hope so, a really cool automated stream that is always up to date and has much more features than the ones that we currently do. So hopefully it better happen. Do you think we will still have an above average Atlantic hurricane season without even a storm forming in May? Oh goodness me, we're not even at the beginning yet, my friend. There is a lot of time to have a well above average season.
They are, yeah, definitely an above average.
Doesn't have to be a preseason storm to be extremely active. I mean,
they're expecting
2005 did it.
Yes.
2004.
I think
No
they're still
preseason
predicting
storm,
19 names, named
Well,
storm.
Here's the deal for the Atlantic. We are going into one of the most favorable conditions for an active hurricane season in recent memory. We have a very strong La Nina that's going into effect that's going to allow for a lot more storm development in the Atlantic. Just because we don't have a preseason storm doesn't mean that the system is... That means that, oh, dead basin, nobody cares. Like, that doesn't matter at all. 2013 had a pre-season storm, and that season was one of the most inactive on record. So...
All right, I've got a question for Soham in the chat. I just want to hear his personal thoughts on this. What does he think forecast-wise peak for 91E right now? I want to hear Soham's thoughts.
Should have asked him to join our stream.
Yeah.
But we're all dead set, really, that it's going to become our first named storm, right?
Yeah. I'm also pretty sold that this is going to become at least a Category 1 hurricane, at least. I mean, just look at the conditions that it has.
I mean, sea surface temperatures at 85 degrees Fahrenheit, low wind shear, probably little to no dry air, I think. It's in pretty favorable conditions to allow some pretty decent intensification, though.
It's a broad system, though, Ethan, and it might struggle to intensify.
At first.
Well, I tend to agree. I mean, just plain devil's advocate, I mean, I think I sort of agree with you. But it will have to shake off all of that extra stuff and tighten itself in.
Yeah, definitely.
Which I think you'll be able to do quite easily.
All right.
I say that Soham is forecasting 85 to 90 miles per hour. That's not bad. I'd be around there.
Fair indeed. Slayer says, when do you think the first hurricane will be in the Atlantic?
Way too early to tell that.
Well, if loads of people thought it would have been last week, the clickbait crew, but it never happened, and we never ever gave it a 10% even on Pulse 13, and neither did the National Hurricane Center, of course.
Really?
So don't believe the hype, I guess, is what you gotta say.
Basically, it'll happen whenever you stop asking for it.
You might be right. What are the chances that Invest 91E doesn't hit Mexico? I was just looking at ensembles before. There is, in fact, none that take it.
Yes,
there is one ensemble that delays it by 3 days, but all of them hits Mexico.
Because the more time that it has over water, the stronger a storm it can become. So, with these kind of conditions that it's in right now,
there's one GEFS ensemble that sort of takes it out to sea for a couple of days, and then on Monday it basically does a homing missile approach and just goes straight into land from there, near Acapulco. But yeah, most of the consensus is still in Oaxaca.
At this point, it's extremely certain that this is going to drop heavy rainfall. This is going to form, probably going to become a hurricane, and almost certainly going to probably do something in the Atlantic. We just don't know what.
Oh, don't. You could have just left that part out, Ethan.
Well, I just had to be honest.
Or you could say it was going to become a Category 6 hurricane and ruin, like, I don't know, Indiana or something.
Oh my god.
No.
No, please don't. Anyway.
No, it'll make its way up towards where I am.
Oh, stop it. Now then, Slayers also just said, what about the invest in the South Pacific? I didn't know there was one.
Piece of trash. Not
Is
even
it?
going to form.
Are you telling me there's an invest in the South Pacific?
There
Maybe.
Yes,
actually no.
No?
Hold on a second.
There's one in the Australian region though.
Yeah, it's called 92P, but it's on the western end of Australia.
Oh, that one. They've actually designated it.
Yeah.
Wow. I was thinking about designating that one myself, but I didn't think so.
Is that basin season already over?
Well, it should
Yes,
be.
I think it's already over. Is that
I don't even know what the end
it
of
is.
that season is.
Okay.
Why is it number 92P? It should be 92S.
Oh, yeah, that didn't even occur to me.
What are they doing?
That's nonsensical. Okay, well, we'll
Probably having after season drinks is what they're doing.
talk
You know.
about that some other time, I guess. And I know, Marlene, you've been speaking quite a lot, but I've not been able to hear. You're muted right now. I'm just trying to lip read. I know you've been talking about that invest.
Is that better?
Yeah, we've got you now.
There we go.
Oh, there we go. Helps when I turn on things.
It
My
certainly does.
computer is being stupid. Yeah, no, I've been looking at 92S on the CIMSS website. That and 91E.
Hmm.
And if you look at it, like 92S, they had it at 20 knots, and 91E, they had it at 25 knots.
Yeah. And I think there may be cause to maybe call 91E 30 knots soon.
Oh dear.
Well, I mean, I just think that's...
But if you look at the visible, you'd swear it's a TD easily.
Ethan, do you swear it's a TD?
I wouldn't swear it is one. I would just say that it is extremely close, if not already.
Just testing your bias there.
You know, if the National Hurricane Center don't go with one, I'm not gonna lose my nuts over it.
Well, we'll find out then, won't we? Live.
And I'll just say that there's always 6 hours later.
There certainly is.
Which, if they don't initiate it now, they almost certainly will 6 hours later from tonight.
All right, we had a few more questions. When do you think the La Nina will die?
Hopefully next year.
Quite a long time.
I don't even know when the La Nina started because at my place it has been extremely warm over the winter.
It's staying for summer, isn't it?
This is the third year of the La Nina.
Has it been constant those 3 years?
Yes, it has.
Blimey. That's bad news for people like me who don't want to see many Atlantic storms ever. Can't be doing with them.
I hate La Ninas.
Oh yes, yeah, you too. Is there a model saying that it could go into the Atlantic? Says Cringy Fun.
Yes, Euro, GFS, and the Canadian model all showed this. Some low pressure area, while that's subtropical, tropical, or non-tropical, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that. But they all do show some energy of this reforming in the Atlantic. While that actually happens, that is remained to be seen. But it's more than 5 days out, is what I can tell you. So.
And the chances that 91E becomes a major hurricane, I might give it a 10% at the moment.
I give it 15 probably.
Ooh, just edged me there. Will Invest 91E reach Texas? Doubtful.
Heck no.
Some rainfall aspect of it could.
Maybe.
It's about a bounce,
Probably.
probably.
The Atlantic one is because as the system moves into Mexico, it's going to become very broad as its circulation dies, and all the models agree that whatever circulation is left is going to be very broad when it makes it into the Atlantic, which is going to lead to a very broad system. So some rainfall aspect of this could make it to Texas, but the exact tropical cyclone is certainly not.
All right. If anyone else wants to say anything right now, go right ahead as we continue to wait for a potential announcement from the National Hurricane Center, although we might just be left here waiting whilst nothing happens right up until the end.
Waiting with bated breath.
The worst thing that could happen is that they issue it 1 minute after we go off the air, which should never happen. But we would know they'd be spiting us then, wouldn't we?
This is completely unrelated, but it is kind of noteworthy to just mention real quick. It's
All
been 25 years since the Gerald F5 tornado, which has gone on record as one of the most violent, some of the most extreme violent damage that we've ever seen from a tornado in recorded history. We had coroners, investigators reporting that they couldn't identify bodies and were confusing them for animal parts.
Crikey.
And I have been working on something in the background, and people don't really know the part of the story about how influential it is to the enhanced Fujita scale, but it is one of the tornadoes that kind of broke the original Fujita scale and kind of led to the development of the EF scale. But it is a very important anniversary for weather enthusiasts alike, and definitely something just to kind of mention while we have nothing going on.
Sure, I appreciate that. And of course our US channel covers anything that goes on in terms of severe weather live as well. Someone on our team, it wasn't me, just put out a poll on our channel saying, on our chat here, do you think Invest 91E will be named? So far, after 41 votes, 90% say yes. It's actually surprising that as many as 10% are saying no.
You gotta remember, because it's 42 votes. Every vote counts as more than 1%.
Yeah,
So
but one vote out of 40 is still, I think, is it 2%? I think
2-ish%, yeah.
All right, some more questions there. Jan says, what's the chance of a Category 2 landfall in Mexico? That's probably the upper bound of what we'll be expecting, really. When do we think...
I'd go for a Cat 2 landfall. I'd probably go 80%, honestly.
Oh my goodness. That's a bit much, I think. Very confident, Ethan.
I think 75% for me because it's in extremely favorable conditions.
My. When do we think that 91E will form? Got all kinds of these questions
today.
Going around. You think it's going to be today?
I mean, if it isn't the top of the hour, it's going to be at
tomorrow
if it's
morning.
Not top of the hour, or if it's not at 10 p.m. Central, then it's going to be probably tomorrow morning. I mean, certainly within the next 24 hours from now, we're easily, and I mean easily, going to be looking at probably a low-end tropical storm from this. Easily.
Will you be claiming the video update then?
Oh yeah.
And what are the chances that Invest 91E won't reform in the Gulf? I think there's still a substantial chance of that, just that some of its energy might contribute to something.
You gotta remember, it still is a 90% chance, so there is still that chance that it will bust completely.
Come on, National Hurricane Center don't make mistakes like that.
Well, that is why it's called a chance.
You know, kind of like how that Invest in the Atlantic last week might have made landfall as a subtropical depression, but you know.
Are you sure?
Velocity definitely says something was there.
Here's a more interesting question, though. What are the chances of a landfall at peak intensity? Now, I say that's interesting because on Run After Run and the GFS, I've been seeing it capitulate before landfall, and whether it actually will be near its peak intensity at landfall or whether there will be some substantial weakening beforehand. What do we think?
It's hard to say, to be honest. It really is hard to say, but I'd probably give it. I'd give it a 60% chance of landfall at peak and a 40% at not at peak. It's so hard to say with this system, simply because it hasn't even made landfall yet.
Or
We'll have
formed.
to wait and see. Yeah, because there's no like overly exaggerating things to like say, oh, this is going to weaken as it moves in. There's nothing saying that that's actually going to happen.
If it's a tight structure that develops and it's a rather small cyclone, and that's sort of what the GFS has been saying recently, it's not huge, does that increase its chances of holding on till landfall or not?
Probably a little bit more. It'll probably increase those chances a little bit, but overall not.
And I'm just wondering where it's coming from though, because I've been seeing it run after run where it goes from say 950 to 980 and then even 990-ish by landfall in 6 hours. I don't think it's land interaction because we've seen storms do much better than that in the past in this area.
Something tells me that the GFS is just not catching on to
Just not awake.
Yeah.
GFS doing GFS things, the movie.
Well,
Is
I wonder
what
if,
I'm seeing.
because we're sort of running out of time a little bit here, if Ethan, you could show us some more model runs from the other models?
Absolutely, I can. Just give me one moment to pull this
Yep.
up here.
Well, that poll ended with 72 votes. 91% of you say that it will be named, so I guess we'll give it a 91% chance of forming in our tropical weather outlook tonight.
Right.
And while Ethan's trying to set everything up, continue sending your messages for 13 all in text if you continue to have comments about this.
Indeed. And a lot
Somebody
of,
says 940 or 950 millibar peak.
Sorry, I just want to bring attention to our poll for a moment there. It
yeah.
doesn't even add up to 100%. It's 91 and then 8%.
There's no way that storm
Yeah.
could get to 950 or 940 millibars.
And I was about to say we have the funny man Nelson in here, but then he left immediately.
Oh. Right, Ethan. That's still the GFS there.
Yep, so we've got the latest GFS up here. The 18Z isn't out yet, but we can put this through motion here. There's our tropical cyclone, and you can see it there developing quite
Well, okay, whilst we're on
significantly.
it, you'll see it just before the landfall. It goes from 950 to 988.
Yeah, right there. And it just capitulated, it moved inland.
What's
And it still
driving
hasn't-
it?
It still hasn't made landfall right there. It's still offshore.
Yikes.
Blimey.
That would be really big for rain totals then.
Yeah, and then you can see, what we'll be mentioning. Something happens with all this energy. It sort of broadens out, and something happens in the Atlantic from
There
this.
it goes.
Something we can pull up the
And I'm
euro
sure
here.
Uh-oh, that's even worse.
Oh
Yeah.
boy.
Euro is worse for the Atlantic by the looks of things.
I just want to point
which
this out
concerns
here.
me because it's got a good reputation.
I'm pulling up another tab here because what hour do I have for this? Hour 54, which was 18Z Sunday. So I just want to point this out here. I'll scroll up here. Look at how farther west the euro is.
Ah,
That's a pretty significant.
well, that's
farther
always
west
been
drop.
the case though. GFS is one of the most easterly ones and has been the whole time.
Yeah. But we can continue to put this model in motion. But then the euro, of course, brings it inland as a strong tropical storm or
And
minimal
that's at,
hurricane.
is that at peak as well?
It's near
Nearly,
peak,
yeah.
very very close to peak. Maybe some slight weakening
So
as it
that
comes
seems to be
inland.
more realistic than the GFS, and it
Yeah,
holds
and-
its circulation, or at least its isobars, into the Atlantic. That's probably the same storm. Same
Yeah,
storm
and
name.
look at how broad it is still.
Could you imagine if Agatha hits Florida?
Yeah.
You just couldn't imagine
Oh,
that.
dear.
That would be awful.
CMC, hold on there. Does it hold its circulation through land?
I just wanted to note something here, Nathan, real quick. CMC has pretty much the exact same landfall location as the Euro. And if we go back to 18Z on Sunday, farther west than the GFS. But the question is it farther west than the Euro?
But those who've been watching closely would know this. And then what happens? I want to see its rotation.
And then it capitulates.
It does lose it there.
Yeah.
So whatever comes out next is
something.
The Atlantic storm name.
Yeah.
I don't even know what we're on this year. What name is the first one?
So I'll have to go back to the 12Z for the icon here. And there's our system. A little bit more eastern than the Euro. And then there it is. It shows the GFS.
Hugging the coast. There it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Very bad scenario for rainfall there.
Its center probably is over here at this image, if there's anything left of it. And then something happens over here in the East Pac again. No idea what happens here, but you can see something is developing or trying to form there on the coast of Mexico. So something is happening here. Then we can go to the H wharf. This
early season slop.
Yeah. Here's the H wharf. We'll switch over to the wind here because I know that's what everyone wants to see. And you can see there the H wharf is. Peaking it right there, just as it comes into land, 964 millibars right there.
See how it like decreases in size in that frame.
Look at the rainfall size of this. You can just see over here. There's not a band over there. Heavy rainfall over there. And then it capitulates as it goes into Florida. And H wharf keeps its circulation, of course.
That'd be a massive concern with all this rain it's going to dump.
We can go to the more larger one here. And this will be just the wind swath, and you can just see there's our system going, what the hell is that?
That's probably the other AOI.
Yeah. And then it does whatever it's going to do with the bit.
It survives, yeah. Oh dear.
And here's the H1. Last but not least, I guess. Here's this. Of course, it brings up to a mid-range Cat 3. But you'll notice that the while yes, the Euro, CMC, Icon, and GFS all bring it in along this coastline right here that I'm outlining. Look at what the H1 does. It goes a lot further east and a lot further well, not significantly stronger, but a little stronger
than like GFS.
Model. Yeah, and keeps
it circulating. But still with a small wind field.
Yeah, this system. Yeah, this system, I mean, its hurricane force wind field is probably going to be pretty compact, but as far as its tropical storm force wind field, that could be moderately sized for the East Pac, I'll say.
What's the typical size for the wind field for the Eastern Pacific?
No clue, but it's bigger than this.
Bigger than that. Well, believe it or not, we've run out of time.
Yep, does not look like they
well, we almost are. We just have 2 minutes left, though.
Well, that 2 minutes I spend saying goodbye to everyone and saying all these things. Down there, the webcam that we were showing there, that was from a location in Oaxaca along the coast, the southern coast there, which may well be inside this storm later on. It's something that's going to be happening over the weekend and into early next week, and it's something that we're going to be having to watch very closely. So obviously we're going to be producing a lot more updates over the next few days. The next one is our tropical weather bulletin, which comes up in about 3 hours time. I'll be producing that one tonight. And then tomorrow we're probably going to start with our video updates on 91E, and it may well have become a depression by then or a tropical storm. And so I'd like to thank my team for taking part tonight, even though it was a little bit disorderly at times. It was our first stream back after the North Atlantic East Pacific recess. So I think we've done pretty well. And thank you very much for supporting us out there, and we hope we're doing a good job, and I think we're getting better just in time for this upcoming hurricane season. Any final thoughts from the team?
Only thing I'm gonna say is regarding the TWB tonight, there has to be a Hone joke, or otherwise Ultimate fans are going to, let's say, riot.
I don't care.
Oh, yeah.
Hone jokes are ridiculously overrated and should be banished from existence. And with that, good night, and we'll see you again tomorrow or later, or whenever you want to watch us again. We'll be here to track 91E as it happens.
There's still half of the NHC.
Oh yes, NHC have not pressed the trigger on it. Just wanted to let you know that before we finish up.